Hey guys, I'm Tony and welcome to my shop. Today we have this lovely piece of box elder burl. I already did the outside. I haven't finished the final shape. We'll round this down quite a bit more after we do the hollowing. But after watching so many Kevin Jesquill posts, I really wanted to try. I'm not going to do a super teeny opening. We'll do a 1-inch opening. But we're going to try to get this nice and hollowed out and finished up and thin and light, and hopefully you sit around for the journey. Remember that hollowing isn't always the funnest thing to watch, but I'll be stopping frequently and speeding up over parts where they're redundant, so you can just kind of see the technique and the tools I'm using to do it. Hope you stick around. So at this point in the turn, it's time to reset and pull it together with a set of jaws. I've sanded this top area. I have not done the full neck up here, as you can see, but I've already sanded it. I sanded it just to 400, and I put a nice coat of my shop shine on there, and yeah, it looks pretty good. We'll probably go back over it and do it. I see some sanding defects here that I didn't see before I took it off and started changing the angle. So that's going to need to be sanded out, but this is also the area where I'm going to be rounding it off. So we'll wait till the end on that. I just wanted to see if the wood really had the character I thought it had before I got too deep into it, because I'm really going to try to make this one more of a gallery piece. Here I've got my HTC 125 chuck. It's my 5-inch chuck from Hurricane. It's been kind of my go-to in the shop for quite a while. I do have a one-way larger one. I think it's called the Stronghold. And then I also have a couple of smaller little chucks, a little Nova, a little G3, teeny Nova and stuff that I use mostly for pen blank drilling and things like that. But this one here has been really good at holding stuff on nice and tight and keeping it concentric. So I'm going to spin it around, make sure we've got each of the bolts nice and tight here, or pinions. I think they're called pinions. You have to let me know if I got that right. But let's stand out of the line of fire, turn the lathe on, speed all the way to 0, and just see how concentric she's spinning. That looks pretty good. I don't think we're gonna have many problems. I'm gonna go ahead and flatten off that top before I mount the hollowing rig, and I am gonna get out the visualizer at some point in this as well, so that we can really try to manage the uniformity of the wall thickness inside. So my only intention here, ding, is just to flatten off this top so we have a nice spot to start our center hole wall. Make sure we're going the right direction here. I don't want to take all of that off because I want as much of that material as I can keep. The more of that mass I can keep up there, the more stable my rim will be as I get thinner. At least that's my thought. I could be wrong there. But I'll leave some of this up there, and that'll leave us the rest of that material down there to work on. So we can cut that off after we get our hollow. So let's just see if we've got the all of the cuts out of there. See, this hasn't been sanded yet or worked. I will bead this over, hopefully. We'll bead that whole thing over and do a nice tight bead. And we may or may not make a stopper for it. I haven't really given much thought to it. Sorry guys, I'm a little under the weather. You can hear it in my voice. I'm trying to muscle through doing the recording, but we'll see how it goes. I don't have the COVIDs. I did take a test. Just a little summer flu. So I'm going to get out my normal Jacobs chuck here, and we're going to start with a 1-inch drill bit. Not a spade bit, but an actual fluted drill bit. I got this little set off of Amazon for nothing. I think it was $29, and it's been four years now. Really have been very happy with them. I did make sure that they're nice and concentric, because I have bought some drill bits that are inexpensive that, you know, if you just need a hole for running a piece of pipe through or something, are great. But if you're trying to do something a little more precision, they won't cut. Now for something this size, I'm going to bring it all the way up, crank up my quill a little bit more than normal, bring it all the way up, touch it, and lock it in place first so we don't start off center, which I've had happen. I'm also going to be drilling at about 300 RPM. No point in powering through on that. So we're at 330 right there. I also probably should take a moment to measure my tip. Right here, we're 3 inches to that blue tape. 3 inches will put us down near the bottom here. So I'm going to go 3 from this top up here, I'm going to go 3 1/4. So I'm going to get my quill all the way out to 1 inch so I can measure from there, and I'm going to take it in 1 inch increments. All right, I'm going to take it at let it cool off a bit. Oh, it's cutting lovely though. I do love how most of the time box elder treats me pretty good. I haven't got to turn a ton of it, but oh god, it's been I think 3 years. Josh from J&B Designs out in Cheyenne, Wyoming. We were just chatting over the internet, and that kind man called and said, "Oh, you haven't turned any? Come by my place, and I'll hook you up." And he hooked me up with a big, beautiful Burl. And then after that, all of a sudden, it started becoming available up here. I'd have, I guess they call it a Norway maple up here, maybe. A tree would come down every now and then, and I'd get access to some really nice timber. This one came from my woodturning club, the Inland Northwest Woodturners. So they do a little wood raffle every clean up a little bit, set up for the Trent Bosch hollowing system. I'll be using the steady rest to do that, and we'll get on it. So as I've mentioned before, in projects like this, I usually like to start with the carbide first. And if you notice, I have it canted to the side. If I put it in straight, the hole is too small and it'll rub, so it's slightly canted. And I'm just going to work on hollowing out a bit of the top up here, leaving as much mass as we can, and then we'll keep moving up at each tool. So the process for me is going to be to hollow, we get our first part, this is hole 1, and then up here we're going to do into this part until we get to our thickness, then we'll move down about 1/3, and then a final pass. And then we'll shear scrape the inside with our shear scraper, our Trent Bosch shear scraper. So that's the current plan. Let's see how she turns. And I'm going to try to bring it up to about 800 RPM. This is only about 5 inches in diameter. A little more than that. The jaw there is 5, so it's maybe 5.5. Just take some very light little passes. So there's a lot of that. In and out, stop, pause, blow out all the chips. Keep the tip done, nice and clean. And then we'll take a peek in. You can see there's lots of ridges. This is why I don't like to use carbide too much, but we're already coming into that spot. So I'll just keep working down that hole. And we'll speed up through a lot of this, I'm sure. But I want to make sure you see the process. So I can get my finger almost all the way to the bottom, and we're already smoothing out over here. So we'll just keep working that center part up before we have to move to the next tool. I don't know how box elder treats you, but for me it always gives me the a little bit of a sneezies. So I'm very careful with it and make sure that I'm keeping a mask on. Getting real close to the bottom there. But to make sure, I'm going to get a pencil out. And my little ruler over here, a little metal rule. And we'll go from the top tip here. We're actually cutting from the side here, but we'll go from the tip. And I'll mark out where 3 inches is. So this is 3 inches. This is 3 1/4. And this is 3 1/2. Now if we get to 3 1/2, we'll be okay because 4 inches is the absolute bottom, but 3 1/2 is kind of where we want to stop. And I want to leave some mass on the bottom as well so that we can shape that a little differently when we get out there. There we go. So I think we're ready now. We've got kind of the center mass pulled out. Can't quite reach the bottom with that finger. And yep, we're good there. So we will start now to move into some more bent tools, and I'll just keep moving out. I'm also going to set up the visualizer now, because once I get inside and I don't have direct visual contact with the tool tip, I'd like to be able to see where that's at by looking at it up on the visualizer over here. So when I set it up, I will make sure you can see the visualizer as well. which is kind of my homemade shop made one. There's a video. I'll put a link up there in that corner. I'll put a link up there for you if you want to watch how I made that. Under $100 worth of parts from Amazon. It's nowhere near as good or as precise as the one that Trent sells, but at my budget, it was going to do. It did the trick. So, all right, let's get set up. Okay, you can see I've got the visualizer set up. It took me about 4 or 5 minutes to do. Right now, I got the camera hovering over my tool head, and you can see up on the screen over here that as I go into the vessel, my tool head will disappear. And I can still see it up there on the top. So you can see we have a lot of material on the sides to take out, and we have a ways to go to get to the bottom. But with some slight, easy passes top down, we should get a nice easy turn out of it. Same speed. So that's the process. And I'll keep using this little bent tool until I can get into the bigger bent tool if I need it. I think we will, but there'll be a lot of, you can see all the shavings just come flying right out of there. So we can tell with our hand, that we're getting a nice up here, and we can see on the picture where we need to keep moving material. That's about, that right there is about as long as you can hollow between having to stop and blow out the shavings. So I will leave it running, but I'm going to leave my mask and my face shield on the whole time and only keep it running just in case something interesting pops up or when I switch to the next tool. But I think you kind of get the idea. Just a slow, easy process. I'm watching my screen up here. I can see the tool disappear inside of the hollow form. And then I just slowly work my angles. But you still don't want to take too aggressive a cut, and you can feel where your bumps are. If you take too aggressive a cut, it'll still catch and blow apart. So you've got to be careful. Now and then, even though I've got the visualizer up, I still like to get out something to give me an idea of what my wall thickness is looking like. I still, at that one spot right there, which is really hard to get a accurate representation on, it looks like it's still about 1 inch. Yeah, we have plenty of material there to continue to work. Not getting thin. I like to just kind of do a reality check with what I'm seeing on the screen versus what I'm feeling with the tool. A lot of times I'm going to stop too and be looking for any signs of stress or cracking. When we have a knot in here, is that going to catch and go flying out? But it's all still nice and smooth. Nothing's changed. And we're getting a nice in there. We're getting nice. It's going to be a pretty one.
I sand them inside the hollow forms? Well, I have a dowel with some 3M sandpaper. Just happens to be 3M, that's what they had there. I get it in the hole, and then I let the drill do the work. Okay, we are almost to the finish line on this one. It's been quite a while. I've been working on this one very slowly because I wanted to get that interior nice and hollow and thin and uniform. And now it's time to take the tenon off and shape the bottom. As I said earlier, I left a lot of mass in the bottom. That wasn't the final shape I was going for because I wanted that stability while I was doing the hollowing. So now we're going to flip it around using my small chuck, this little pine jam chuck. And the reason I'm doing the pine is it's softer than the box elder. If I use a harder wood, I could end up damaging this burl up here. At least that's my thought. So I turned this out of pine real quick, tapered this down so it'll fit into the hole and give me a nice jam fit. Should be a good friction drive on this end. And then we'll get a nice sharp tool and start shaping the bottom. I have 1 inch of material left on the very bottom, so we can see there. From the bottom of the tenon to where I want to round it down, you can see the shape there. I left kind of a flare. We're going to round that all the way to the bottom, kind of like the way Kevin Jesquill does it. He's one of my heroes when it comes to hollowing. Got to see him live a few times, and my goodness, he's just such a great teacher and such a great turner. I only went with 1 inch opening. I'm sure that's probably double the size of his average opening, but I still wanted to give this a shot. So let's get it mounted up, and we'll get going from there. Okay, I'll put you on the overhead mount here, the camera. So I'm just going to put my smaller chuck on there. That is a inexpensive Amazon chuck. It's not the V-Vor, it's another lower end brand. There's a link in the description down there. I'm on year 4 with this one, and I've just had no issues. Already got some lines there from the serrated chuck jaws to hold me in. And before we get going too far on this, I'll spin it up and make sure we see how it's running a little untrue. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and true that up. So we'll do that first. And we just want to make sure that we have a super true turn here when it comes to our jam chuck. And sorry guys, I'm still under the weather. It's been a while working on this project in and out just with the little summer cold here. I don't have the vids or any of them terrible things. Just not feeling all that top notch. So I will just get a small bowl gouge out. We'll do the 1/2 inch here. Get the speed up right around 1,000. We'll just round this off a little bit. I'm not spinning too terribly fast because we got it hanging out here. Should probably get a I'm just tapering that out. So we should have something that's spinning nice and round now for us. So, sorry that was probably boring, but you got to get it done sometimes. Now I'm not going to put any material in here to hold this down, and we're going to come straight up to that edge there. I might want to expand that a bit so that we actually have a jam, an actual friction in there instead of just pushing up against the shoulder. Love input from the guys who are out there. I'm going to come from the other direction and just kind of taper this down lightly. There we go. We have more of a subtle jam now, or a subtle taper, rather than having a hard shoulder to rest against. Now we still have our mark in the bottom, so we'll loosely apply that here. And that's from when we did our initial rough turning. Slide it in, try to line it up nice and tight here. I don't want to put too much pressure because this is thin. We're 3/10 of an inch. So every cut we make is going to have to be gentle. And that is spinning up about as round and concentric as you can get. So we're going to take some very gentle passes, and we're going to move our way down to get rid of that. And at the bottom, I'm going to do a small beaded ring to hold it up to create a shadow line, but that we want to be right on the very bottom of the piece. If I don't like the way that looks, I will eliminate that as well, and we will go straight for for just a rounded bottom foot with a little flat sanded space so it sits flat. I have an inch of material down here, but the walls get thin down to here, so I have to be very careful or it's going to blow apart. So I'm going to go ahead and get on my PPE and we'll get this rolling. Turning at just about 1,000 RPM right now. Hand behind the tool rest, anchor well, and take little light passes. And we've already experimented with how this turns downhill, so we know we should be okay. Again, very sharp tool. I might go to the sharpening station 3 or 4 times before we actually get this done. Can't put too much pressure on it. I don't want to tighten it up too tight and risk losing my nicely polished and finished mouth up there. So one of the benefits of working, so we can see exactly where our bump is going to be there. One of the benefits though of working, I'll give it a little more tight, with pre-polished wood is we're going to get a nice defining line, and we're going to see right when we get our blend in here. And I shouldn't have to even shear scrape this. Nice sharp tool, we should be able to get right down, get it perfectly ready to sand cut, and then we'll sand and blend the rest of this. I had originally contemplated adding some texture down here, but I think it'd take away from the overall piece. So I'm just going to keep working that shadow edge there. I'm going to put a little bit more light on it. Apologize if this is too bright for the picture, but I want to really delineate that shadow line for me. That's going to help me see where my mark needs to go. I had a spider on my leg. I did not care for that. Okay, you can almost, you can see it and you can feel it just a little bit, so we got a little bit more to go. But not as scary as I thought it was going to be. To be honest, this is, we're down to, this is very thin, very light, and we have all this mass in the base. So we're going to keep pulling it around, and I just got to finish off this right here in one nice swoop. There's no cracks or anything showing up. This is all the feather from that branch, which is really pretty. It polishes up lovely. And I think we'll want to make it a little bit rounder on the bottom before we start working on the beaded foot. Now, I really like that shape. I think we've got a beautiful shape here. We could sand and blend that quite easily. I still have my mark on the bottom down here, so we do need to work on getting some of that material out, and I'm going to come in straight here and pull it back, and then we'll be able to start beading it. But overall, that's the shape we're going for, and I think that's quite lovely. I'm actually quite pleased with that. We have a little tear out here, and maybe I will have to do a little bit of the wing scrape to get that up, and we have some of that beautiful pink spalting coming through, carried all the way down through where this branch went. So let's go ahead and pull that up into where we're going to put our bead. Go ahead and give a little bit of a light scrape here. I was hoping to avoid this part here, because we're getting really thin up here. Keeping that real light there should give us an easier start for sanding. And I like this flat here, so now we're going to make our bead out of that bottom. Now here is where I wish that I had a vacuum chuck of some sort that I could hold this in with. One of my buddies, Tony Peps over at Tony Peps Woodworking, he's a big vacuum chuck advocate, and I keep resisting it. Having used a lot of vacuum chucks in my other job, the maintenance on the actual vacuum pumps is one of the things that kind of keeps me disinterested in going that route, but I do know it's got benefits. This is just a 1/2 inch spindle gouge. Find where we're at, and I'll start cutting in towards our center there. This is where our bead's going to be. I don't know if from the angle up there you can actually see this or not. So we started to round our little bead section here. And I'm going to put a delineating line in that with the sharp pointy gouge, but I think I want to put a super fresh edge on this one. I'll hand do this edge real quick and I'll be right back. Got a nice still fresh hand done edge on this one real quick. And we're just going to put a little shadow line on that bead. Then I'm going to come in here, lower the tool rest. I'm going to turn off this. I don't want to accidentally have a bump here. I'll lower my tool rest about 1/8 of an inch to get a slightly tighter approach angle into a little nub here. But it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do much from the lathe. That's going to have to happen. Yeah, that's going to end up having to happen for us off the lathe at the table. So now I'm just going in to give a little more shape to our bead. Okay, let me see what tool can I get in there to. Oh, that's actually in a pretty nice depth here, so that'll polish up very nicely. We're going to have to do this whole entire section down here by hand, so we're going to have to hand sand off the rest of this nub into there. But depth-wise, we look pretty good, and I think that went way faster than I expected. So I'm going to start out at 180, and we're going to go up through 400. We'll blend our transition line here, and from there, it'll just be a matter of repolishing it. And I'm going to use grit here, and then I'll take it over the buffing wheel for the final application, and we're just going to use carnauba. There's no finish on here right now except for our shop shine and what we could do on the wheel. We got some interesting spalt there, which usually spalt is pretty, but that ends up looking, it's not as pretty in the wood as I was hoping right there. That would have been nice if that was clear honey all the way through, but this is just what we get. We got some interesting spalt. So the burl still looks beautiful on top. This interesting staining in there, and then of course we have our little pink from the flame in the box elder. So I'm going to go ahead and set up for some sanding, put you guys on turbo mode, and we'll move on from there. Okay, after sanding up all the way to 400, I'm going to go ahead and go with Peta's True Grit Right on this one. We're just going to polish it out before we take it to the wheel. I need to get a one of those little blue cloths. Where'd my little blue cloths go? There we go. So I already got a cloth I've been using with the Petas here. So I will fold it over 2 times. Remember, we don't wrap our fingers in cloths. Get little Petas on there, and I'm going to crank it up just a little over 1,000 RPM. Now this will get out all the little scratches from sanding. And the trick with Petas is you get it on there good, and then you just keep going across the cloth, across your piece with a nice thin section of your towel that's clean until no more Petas comes off. And then you should have a nice polished wood part here. Let's see. Didn't do a great job of applying it. I can't put too much pressure on because it'll want to slip, so I'm going to have to do it the old-fashioned way here with the lathe off, it looks like. We'll go ahead and get that. See how it wants to slip on my little friction drive, and I don't want to crank it too tight because now we're thin everywhere and it will crack. And again, we're going to be taking this over to the Beal system and buffing it out over there as well. But I want to make sure before we do that I've done everything I can here at the lathe before we have to take it over to the workbench to work out and finish carving this little bead on the bottom. Like I said, if I had a little vacuum chuck set up, I could just suck this right in there and work that from the other side, but that's not an option right now. One little crank, and we're going to be buffing this off at pretty high speed. You can see it come off here. You see it's still on the cloth. Teeny bit left. Okay, nice and clean coming off. There we have our polished box elder hollow form. All we have to do is finish up that foot. I'm going to go ahead and take it over to the wheel. Let me know down in the comments if you guys want to see how I do that on the wheel. I'm assuming that it wouldn't be an exciting thing, but if you're interested in me walking through like one quick polish on one of the bowls, I'd be happy to do that, and we can get it over there. I think before we go to Beal, I'm going to go ahead and put, I know I'm going to be polishing off a lot of this wax, but I'm going to use our Shop Shine in here, give it a thick coat, and let it kind of sit up for a minute. It's under 80 in my shop today for the first time in a long time, but I want to make sure that every little pore is filled up with some wax, get a chance to settle in there before we actually buff it out. This is not a hard wax, so I could be putting a hard wax on here, but I want to just make sure that it's all been soaked in, that every open pore has been filled with something, and it'll take a much nicer shine, from my experience. I mean, everyone's got their own finishing technique, but that's the one that has consistently delivered for me. So that's how I do it. I mean, I know a lot of guys that we all watch, you know, our big heroes like Papa and Phil. You know, Gary and Phil have been big proponents of Zinsser and wax and feed, or feed and wax from Howard's. You see a whole lot of shellac product from them. I haven't had luck doing shellac on a super thin thing. I love using it on bark in areas where I want a little shine and a little protection, but really haven't gotten to where I'm polishing out shellac finishes or heavy layered stacked finishes on these smaller hollow forms. So let's let that set up, and we'll come back and I'll meet you when we're ready to start taking that foot off. It's just down to hand sanding. So we'll get in here and we'll sand that up, and then we'll take it to the wheel. Well, there you can see, we got our bottom done. Got our little, my name and the year here in box elder Burl. And you can see the chatoyancy and stuff really is nice. It sits nice and flat. And if you get down there nice, you can see it's really got a dramatic little foot. That little shadow line just hovering off there with the teeny bottom. It's less than an inch in diameter at the bottom there. The hole's an inch in diameter. Let's get it over to the scale, measure it, and see what she ended up weighing. Got the wife's kitchen scale here, and let's see what she ended up weighing. So there you go, 7.7 ounces. See if we can convert that to grams for those people that are gram people. 219 grams. So probably could have gotten lighter, but that's not too bad. That's what we're shooting for, something under 10 ounces. And yeah, we did it. 7.7 ounces. Ta-da! Well, there she is, all finished up. Got our foot done. I'll pick that up and show it to you in a second. You can see it really just sits there on that little bitty foot. Nice hollow form. Beautiful box elder burl. Again, this came from the Inland Northwest Woodturners wood raffle. It's just a little chunk. You saw the beginning there, the before and afters, as Phil would say. Got it down to about 3/10 of an inch thick all the way around, using my digital caliper to measure that out. And all you see right there is polished wood. Nothing on there but carnauba and wood over at the Beal system. Really lovely chatoyancy and some pretty figure. Really proud of this one. It turned out great. Probably could still work on my form a little bit, but I think I like the overall shape. And we'll keep working at it and keep plugging along. Special thanks to Kevin Jesquillen for all the inspiration and encouragement. Just a great guy. If you aren't following him or looking at his work, you're missing out. He's really top of the game right now in the hollow foam world. Well, hope you had a good time, guys. If you did, please give me a like and a subscribe. If you share this video, it really helps my channel out. And I really do appreciate you being here. It's a lot of fun for me. Well, until next week, get out there and turn something.